Now, not every tractor that rolls into the field becomes a legend. Some stumble, some sputter, and some are remembered for all the wrong reasons. Now, the ED40, it was one of those. Built in Britain and imported into the United States in the early 60s, the ED40 was meant to give Chalmers a foothold in the compact tractor market. Hey, on paper, it seemed like a really good idea. Affordable, smaller than its American cousins, a tractor for the farmer who didn't need a gigantic machine. But the reality of the situation, it was underpowered, unreliable, and awkward in ways that farmers just couldn't ignore. The engine didn't deliver the strength it promised, and the hydraulics often failed when you needed them most. Worse still, the parts supply was inconsistent. Yeah, if your ED40 broke down, and it often did, you could be waiting weeks for the right replacement pieces to come in. Here's the reality though, farmers ain't got weeks. They have hours, days at most. And so the ED40 quickly developed a reputation not as a solution, but as a paperweight headache. Today, it is rarely seen outside of collector circles, not because it's a prized antique, but because so few of them survived. For Chalmers, the ED40 was a misstep, a reminder that not every experiment deserves a place in the field. But sadly, the ED40 wasn't alone. The 60s had other disasters waiting to unfold, and one of them came from a company farmers once trusted above all else. And number 2 is the Farmall 560. Now, here's the thing. For decades, Farmall was the trusted name on American farms. The company's tractors were reliable, durable, and everybody loved them. Then came the Farmall 560 in 1958, a machine that promised progress, but only delivered problems. See, the 560 was built with power in mind. Bigger, stronger, and designed to compete with growing demand for high horsepower machines. But here's where Farmall went wrong. Instead of designing a new drivetrain to handle that power, they simply stretched the old one. The result didn't take a genius to figure out. Catastrophic failures. Transmissions cracked. Final drives shattered. Farmers who had trusted Farmall for generations suddenly found themselves with broken machines sitting useless in the field. Just imagine investigating what you think is the next step in farming efficiency, only to watch it literally tear itself apart under pressure. Now, as you can imagine, the fallout was enormous. Thousands of tractors needed warranty repairs. Farmers lost precious time in their busiest seasons. And worst of all, Farmall's reputation took a hit that it would never fully recover from. The 560's failure opened the door for competitors like John Deere to surge ahead in the market. But even in disaster, there's always a lesson. The 560 stands as a cautionary tale. Never cut corners on engineering. Progress without preparation is just a blueprint for failure and disaster. And speaking of failures, some tractors didn't just have engineering shortcuts, they were flawed right down to their design from top to bottom, inside out, which brings us to the next name on our list at number 3, the John Deere 2010. Now, chances are when you hear the name John Deere, you probably think of green and yellow excellence, and you're probably wearing your John Deere baseball cap, ready to fight me outside in the backyard. But calm down, because the company that built its reputation on durability, reliability, and iconic design can also drop the ball. And that's pretty obvious when you look at the John Deere 2010. So this was released in the early 60s. It was meant to be a part of Deere's new generation of power. Now on the surface, it looked like innovation. In practice, this thing was a disaster. The 2010 suffered from almost everything that could go wrong with the tractor. Its engines, both gas and diesel, were weak. The hydraulics were clumsy and prone to failure, and the transmission, frustratingly unreliable. Oh, and to make matters worse, Deere used a unique sleeve deck engine design that was notoriously difficult to service. And all those poor farmers who tried to fix them often found themselves sinking more money into maintenance than the actual tractor was worth. But what stung the most here was betrayal. Farmers expected Deere to deliver excellence, but instead the 2010 became one of the most complained about tractors in the brand's history. Many who bought one swore that they would never trust John Deere again. Now, collectors today will still tell you the same thing. The 2010 ain't worth much. Not because it's rare, but because so few people even want to bother with the thing. Unlike all of Deere's celebrated models, the 2010 isn't a machine that you showcase. It's one you hide in the back shed, hoping that people forget you ever owned it. But here's the thing about the 2010. It is a story of resilience. Deere learned from its mistakes, bounced back with better models, and reclaimed its reputation. But that does not remove the stain of the 2010. That thing belongs in history's Hall of Shame. Now, before we dive into our next one, make sure you join the squad and you click subscribe. Coming in at number 4 is the Oliver 1800 Diesel. Now, not every mistake comes from inexperience. Sometimes it comes from ambition. The 1800 Diesel, introduced in the late 50s, was supposed to be Oliver's proud step into the future. A big tractor, a powerful tractor, a machine built to compete with the rising demand for horsepower. And look, at first glance, it had all the right credentials. Strong diesel engine? Check. Modern styling? Hell yeah. Enough muscle to impress any farmer who looked its way? Oh yeah. But then, reality kicked in. Yeah, the early diesel engines were trouble. They ran way too hot, they wore down too fast, and a lot of them suffered catastrophic failures. Now, for a farmer in the middle of planting season, nothing could be worse than hearing that terrible silence as the engine seized. Repairs? Expensive. Parts were hard to come by. And trust? Once that was gone, Oliver never got it back. A lot of farmers who invested in the promise of the 1800 felt betrayed. It looked like progress, but behaved like a liability. A tractor that could pull heavy loads one day and sit dead in the field the next? Not a tractor anybody wants to buy. Now, collectors today still sometimes hunt down the Oliver 1800, but usually only as a curiosity. A reminder of what happens when bold engineering isn't backed up by reliability. And for Oliver, the 1800 was more than a failed machine. It was the beginning of the company's slow decline. But if the 1800 was a stumble, our next tractor was a full-on faceplant. At number 5 is the Ford 6000. Very few tractors arrived with more hype than the Ford 6000. Launched back in '61, it was advertised as the machine that would pull farming into a new era. Sleek modern lines, bright red paint job that screamed confidence, a futuristic dashboard packed with features no farmer had ever seen before. Ford called it the future, and a lot of people believed him. After all, this was Ford, one of the biggest names in American industry, trusted by millions of people coast to coast. Curiosity quickly turned to excitement. Farmers lined up to see demonstrations and plenty signed on the dotted line. Owning a 6000 felt like owning tomorrow. Oh, but tomorrow came way too quickly. Almost immediately, the cracks started showing. The much-hyped Select-O speed transmission, a push-button power shift system meant to make work easier, turned into its greatest weakness. Jerky, unreliable, and expensive as hell to fix, it left operators frustrated. The engine itself also had flaws that caused overheating and failures under load. The hydraulic system was inconsistent at best, sometimes refusing to deliver the pressure needed for heavy implements. And one by one, farmers found themselves with tractors that wouldn't last a single season without major problems and repairs. It got so bad that Ford had to do something nearly unthinkable in tractor history: a full recall of the entire line. Imagine that, machines sold as the pride of progress, hauled back to the factory to be torn down and rebuilt. Trust was shattered. Now, Ford tried to save face by fixing the design and re-releasing the 6000. On paper, the improvements solved some problems. But for farmers, the damage was done. The excitement was gone, replaced by bitterness. Very few were willing to gamble their livelihoods twice. The 6000's reputation was already scarred beyond repair. It was supposed to be the future, but instead it became a warning. Never let marketing get ahead of engineering. You know, sometimes innovation stumbles, sometimes design fails, and sometimes even the biggest names in farming history produce machines the farmers would rather forget even existed. So if you had to add one tractor to this worst ever list, which one would it be? Let us know in the comments down below.